Well, you've been talking to us about the awful shooting in Texas lately, and we've been listening. We often end up putting together stories based on your feedback. Tom wrote, after what happened in Texas, it's time to get the gubernatorial candidates on record regarding gun control. Yep, I agree, Tom. Great idea. We took the question to all three candidates running for governor in Oregon. We asked Democrat Tina Kotek, the non-affiliated Betsy Johnson, and Republican Christine Drazen for interviews. All three women are former Oregon lawmakers, so before we get into their plans, let's take a look at how they voted already on three key gun laws. Here's how they voted on background checks for private sales in 2015. Kotek said yes, Johnson said no, and Drazen was not yet in the legislature. Here are their votes on the red flag law for 2017, which keeps guns away from people who could harm themselves or others. Kotek voted yes, Johnson voted no, Drazen still not in the legislature at that time. And here's how they voted on the safe gun storage law in 2021. Kotek yes, Johnson no, Drazen no. We'll start tonight with Johnson, who said she did not want a discussion of gun laws to become an argument over ideologies.
What I don't want to do is to use this tragedy as we have after other shootings, whether they're at schools or at grocery stores, to send us off into our ideological corners to continue to battle about this.
Johnson said she has several ideas to help make Oregon safer from gun violence.
I would absolutely find a way to have stronger mental health prevention and intervention in our schools and on our streets. Oregon is 50th last in the nation. As governor, I would take this as a state level shame and I would fix it. Secondly, work directly with school districts to support what they deem appropriate in their communities. Parents and teachers have to be involved in this conversation. What meets their community standards in terms of safe school infrastructure? And then be prepared to battle for a budget in Salem that funds those infrastructure improvements. And then finally, a more aggressive enforcement of our existing laws. We've got plenty of laws on the books. What we need is the manpower, the money to enforce those.
As I mentioned earlier, all three candidates for governor are former state lawmakers. So as we talk about important issues like this one, we're also going to be talking to them about how they voted in the past.
Okay, thank you. As we're checking voting records, though, I see back in 2015 that you voted against background checks for private sales. In 2017, you voted against the red flag law. And in 2021, against the safe storage. Would you really take action to protect Oregonians?
Absolutely. I believe, and I am a gun owner, I absolutely believe that one of the responsibilities of owning a gun and law-abiding citizens do this is to provide safe storage. I heard from law enforcement people that some of these laws, the way that they were written, and I'm looking at the language on the four corners of the bill, were unenforceable, dangerous for public safety personnel, and I thought in some instances lacked due process. And when I'm hearing that from law enforcement professionals, I have to listen to them. They're the guys that are out on the front lines in the street. What I want to focus on, Pat, are solutions that are practical, not ideological. And I think that's reflective of my voting record.
All right. Thank you. But one more time on those. Are those really ideological bills? The universal background checks, for example, for private sales, and that red flag law and the lock up the guns, none of that seems really ideological.
Well, I'm concerned about its enforceability and its practicality.
All right. Could you talk about that a little more? Why do you think they're not enforceable?
Well, there's not going to be law enforcement at every private sale transaction. If you and I buy and sell a gun, how practically do you have that tracked?
All right, but what about even
Pat, let me go back and just say this more. The solution is not passing more laws for law-abiding citizens.
So that's what she had to say on that. Now, on to Tina Kotek, who believes gun violence can be stopped.
Here's what I know. Gun violence is preventable. And we have to do better. I don't think this is the type of state or country we want to live in when these things happen. because it's really only happening in our country. And I think we can do better.
Kotek has specific ideas on additional laws that Oregon could pass to make the state safer.
We need to ban ghost guns, the ability for people to make guns in their own homes. We have to get on top of that. We need, I believe, to increase the age at which you can buy an assault weapon. Right now, you can do that at 18. I think it should be at least 21. That's what we saw with the shooter yesterday. 18, went out and bought an assault rifle. I believe we should ban people from owning guns if they've been convicted of a hate crime.
As we highlighted earlier, Kotek voted yes on all 3 gun safety bills in Oregon: background checks on private sales, red flag law, and gun storage.
As House Speaker, I've worked really hard to pass common sense gun violence prevention bills, keeping the guns out of the hands of domestic abusers and stalkers, making sure people who buy firearms have to have a background check, making sure that when you own a firearm, you store it safely and report it when it goes stolen. Very basic things. We're trying here to do our part.
Kotek also believes there needs to be more investment in treatment of mental health. And let me just say, before you accuse me of being partisan, I wanted to talk with Republican Christine Drazen about this issue, but she did not make herself available. We contacted her campaign Wednesday morning and gave her the same amount of time to respond or schedule an interview as we did with the other campaigns. We were told she was traveling out of state Wednesday, so we said today would be fine, and today apparently was not fine because we just got no response. We are still asking for an interview on this topic, and we will be happy to talk with her any day next week or even the week after that, because we think the issue is important, it's not going away, and you should hear from her thoughts on the topic and her answers about her voting record. In the meantime, we got a written statement from her campaign. It quotes Drazen as saying, "For any mother, what happened yesterday in Texas is our worst nightmare. No parent should have to worry about their child's safety at school. No child should have to fear violence taking place in their own classroom. My heart is broken over the lives lost in this horrific and evil act. We can and must do more to protect our kids. That includes investing in school resource officers and ensuring that individuals who should not have access to a classroom do not gain access to a classroom. As governor, my budget will provide dedicated funding to strengthen school safety measures to prevent these kinds of heinous attacks from occurring."